Welcome to This Week in Wrestling History.
All right, everyone, welcome to This Week in Wrestling History. As always, we're your hosts, Jacob,
Yo,
Ryan. It's going to be a very sedate episode, I think. Some behind-the-scenes notes. We're changing things up a little bit. So you'll see episodes start coming out on Mondays instead of Fridays due to some work scheduling stuff. And it means we're probably going to be recording Saturday mornings, so before we're fully caffeinated and awake from the day. So
yeah, I haven't had my energy drink for the day yet, so
yeah, we'll be a little bit more laid back, a little bit more relaxed. So on that note, we're actually going to start with a good pay-per-view this week.
woo!
Oh, before that, plugs.
Sure. Twitter, WrestleHistPod.
Gmail, Wrestling History Podcast at gmail.com for any feedback, questions, suggestions.
Facebook, This Week in Wrestling History.
And you can find us on Spotify, Stitcher, on all the podcast things, This Week in Wrestling History, and on YouTube. Just look for This Week in Wrestling History Podcast.
There you go. You got to remember the podcast part.
Yep. So, all right. So, yeah, this week we are looking at Extreme Rules 2011.
Yeah, and this will kind of start off with, the first match on the card, but this is the eve to the Summer of Punk.
Yeah, so we're in, I believe this takes place actually in super early May. Is that correct?
May 1st.
May 1st. First pay-per-view after WrestleMania for this year.
Yep.
So we're hot off the heels of that. We start off with CM Punk leading the new Nexus, which I never got the idea of putting Punk with the Nexus, honestly.
It's because they needed a mouthpiece because a lot of them weren't very good at talking.
Well, the problem was Cena has since killed the Nexus dead at this point.
Yeah, because, Cena killed the Nexus, and Wade Barrett has, quote, left the Nexus.
Yeah, so we will see them later as the Core, which...
Yeah. So Wade Barrett was pretty much their mouthpiece because dude could talk.
Right.
And the Nexus themselves needed somebody who could talk, so why not have Punk do it when he's not really doing anything at the time?
Right, so we're well past the Straight Edge Society. We're really just kind of in Nowheresville for Punk right now. He just didn't have a lot going on.
Yeah, and I think a lot of him being part of the Nexus was they were trying to recapture what he had with the Straight Edge Society because that stuff was really good.
And maybe recapture a little bit of the original Nexus angle because they were super hot. And then as soon as Cena just basically single-handedly put them down, they went ice cold nearly instantly.
Yeah, exactly.
So really funny, actually. Look at the members of the Nexus. They're either still with the company in a pretty decent spot or stone cold dead. Gone.
Yeah, because you have... Who's left?
Daniel Bryan?
Well, he was only part of it for, 2 weeks.
He was still part of it originally. Him. Yeah, they fired him because... Well, they actually fired him from the company for a little bit, then brought him back, and he refused to realign with the Nexus. But
then you have Otunga, who does commentary stuff.
You have Bray.
Yeah.
He was part of it. Ryback was part of it, who has since he found his own niche and then was
pushed aside.
Justin Gabriel, he never went anywhere with the company. He's gone.
He's in ROH now, doing pretty good.
Heath Slater.
Because he's got kids.
He got kids. He's had a couple tag belt runs, and it's not nothing.
Yeah.
Who else was there?
Wade Barrett's gone.
Curtis Axel.
Yep, he's still around.
Yep.
Mason Ryan, the Batista with long hair.
He never went anywhere.
No, I'm pretty sure he's not even wrestling anymore.
Yeah, so it was definitely pretty split where you're either still with the company and doing okay or completely gone. All right, I guess there are some generic mid-carders there, so pretty good spread, but I think overall for a group that big, they probably did better than average for guys that stuck around.
Right. So, yeah, the first match ends up being CM Punk against Randy Orton in a last man standing match.
And so last man standing, basically someone gets knocked down and then has to be standing by a 10 count. Punk comes out with the members of the new Nexus, the 3 of them that were left, apparently.
Yeah.
Showing how far the Nexus has really fallen. And we get the anonymous Raw GM, so we were doing that.
Yeah, because we're dead center in the midst of that.
So we're at Extreme Rules, and the new Nexus is banned from ringside. So it's a last man standing match. This thing could have gone into the back where, they could have just run out and tagged him. It's really dumb to ban people in a no DQ match.
Right. It just doesn't make sense for the story because, I mean, again, what's going to happen if they decided to come back out and beat up Randy Orton anyway?
Right. So,
like, there was the anonymous GM didn't give any, like, don't do this or else this will happen.
Right. And it just, overall, honestly, it just kind of neutered the new Nexus even more because Punk more than holds his own anyways, and just there was no need for it. It highlighted their lack of need.
Yeah, exactly.
So the match itself, basically Hardcore's rule match, really good. Punk and Orton put on a great little match.
It was always funny because whenever Punk and Orton had anything going, they had some pretty decent chemistry because their styles were relatively similar. Punk could kind of do the quicker pace stuff, but he was more in line with Randy's slow and methodical kind of thing.
Right.
Especially when he was a heel.
Right. Punk definitely kind of did do a more slow, methodical thing, which Randy definitely does the more slow, methodical. Higher impact for a guy his size, I suppose.
Yeah, like he'll hit the big moves because, I mean, Randy's the big guy in this match.
Right. And it both kind of worked because they both kind of have that I'm just going to be a real asshole streak to them.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Punk definitely, both inside the ring and out, definitely has a reputation for being a bit of, he kind of does what he wants.
And Randy doesn't?
Well, no, but I'm saying exactly. They both kind of have that similar reputation of, they can do business, but they can also be a bit of a prick.
Yeah. And I feel like when you put the two of them together, it's definitely something that's more, it's definitely something that's going to be more of a better chemistry working or something like that.
It really worked out well. They had a bit of a spot at one point where they're fighting outside of the ring, just between an area where you don't normally see people fight, between the backside of the ring and the barrier, where there's not a whole lot of room, but they take that little bit of room and really kind of like hammer the crap out of each other in just a small space, and they make it look really brutal and vicious, which I don't know if I've ever really seen anyone do before or since, and it was just kind of a cool part of the match, I thought.
Yeah. I mean, again, you have two guys who, I mean, at this point, Punk had been in not just WWE, but in wrestling for
at least a decade.
Yeah.
Or right around a decade, if not.
And Randy at this point has hit his decade mark.
Right. And
he debuted in 2001, 2002?
I believe, yeah, right around there. So, and they're both multiple-time world champs at this point.
Right.
Beat the crap out of each other with kendo sticks here and there, too. So
I was kind of hoping that they would just have, like, a lightsaber fight with the kendo sticks at some point. But
what a nerd.
Tell me that wouldn't have been entertaining.
That would not have been entertaining. That would have been silly.
Yeah,
it could have fit in the right match, which would have been like the New Day versus some other, like,
the New Day versus the Bar.
Maybe the Bar. Yeah, probably the Bar could have worked. Where, I mean, they're allowed to be just silly enough. Where, yes, you could have done a cool, like, do an actual lightsaber fight with Xavier and Big E, just both like, oh, this is so cool.
I mean, come on. The Bar does the Super Saiyan fusion technique as their entrance.
Fair enough. All right, so end of the match is Randy hitting a super RKO off the top rope on a Punk who's also standing up on the top rope. Both guys go down. Randy makes it to his feet. Punk stays down. Punk, I think this was basically a really safe loss for Punk. It was a great match, so it didn't really harm anyone. It was brutal enough, so it didn't really make him look weak or anything. And as we would go to see, Summer of Punk, they had plenty of creative lined up for him, so the loss didn't really...
It didn't hinder him or slow him down going into the following months.
Exactly. Given that they had so much planned for him, it was a safe loss to take. So, what actually ended up happening to Randy after this, since he was headed to SmackDown? This was right after the draft.
I'm pretty sure this is when, because he's still, at this point, he's still kind of a tweener almost. But I think this is when he does full-blown face. Actually, no. He turns full-blown heel, and this is him versus Christian.
No.
Yes, because SummerSlam ends up being him and Christian for the World Heavyweight title.
Right, but Randy was a face throughout that whole program because Christian, they did a double turn.
Oh, that's right.
It wasn't even a double turn, yeah. So, as we will see later in the evening, Christian goes on to win the World Heavyweight Championship tonight. And yeah, he loses it like the next night on...
Two days
later on SmackDown.
Yep.
To Randy, and then gets really whiny about it, and we have heel Christian for the last bit of Christian's run with the company.
Which, I mean, heel Christian is never a bad thing.
No, I felt bad about it because I always wanted Christian to have more of a run with it, but, in retrospect, it's fine. So.
But they gave it to him.
Exactly. They gave it to him, and, well, we'll get to that in a little bit here. So, overall, super good match. Obviously, us being kind of fanboys would have preferred Punk to win, but didn't really matter, didn't really need it. So it was fine as it would all turn out.
If Randy had to win, this match would have been the one that I would have wanted him to win because it was a good match.
It was a 20-minute match, so it was a bit of a battle. And they went to war, and Randy happened to be the one that came out. And it's not like Randy hit the RKO and just stood tall over Punk while he couldn't get up. They were both beaten, they were both down. Randy happened to be the one that got up because he was delivering the move and still barely got up.
Randy gets up at 9.5.
Right. And it was really good, even given that I don't like last man standing matches. The 10 count thing I think is too hokey because, like, right from the beginning, they're always waiting. They're flat dead until 7, and then they're up by 8 or 9.
Right. I mean, if they had paced it out a little bit more where towards the beginning the ref gets to like 3 and they stand up.
Yeah, 3, 4. Get up on 4.
In the middle of the match, they're at like 6 and Randy gets up. And towards the end of the match, they're at like 8.
Yeah, I would have liked that a little bit in here. In general, I think last man standing matches need that a lot more. So, great example of a last man standing match was actually Becky versus Charlotte. As much as we crap on Charlotte, at the very end of the match, Charlotte was starting to get back up, but then crumbled again. It just couldn't quite get there. That's the proper way to do that.
Something like that is a little bit better.
Yeah, so that's my only real criticism of the whole thing.
I mean, still though, if you're going to watch any last man standing match, this is one of the better ones.
Oh yeah, that's such a minor critique on the whole thing. Yeah. So, all right. Next up, we have a tables match for the WWE United States Championship. We have Sheamus, our champion, versus Kofi Kingston.
So is it just me, or did Kofi look a lot bigger back then than he does now?
I thought he looked smaller, honestly. So
see, I thought he, like his shoulders and his biceps looked a lot bigger than
it could have been. I mean, shockingly, when you've been doing this for X number of years, maybe you're not as keen about staying on top of. Maybe you're not putting in the extra couple hours in the gym every week.
That's true. I mean, on ENC's podcast, he literally says that the last time he worked out was doing 45 minutes of cardio the day before he had the hour-long gauntlet match. So
after a certain point, you're just kind of maintaining your health on the road and not necessarily trying. He's in the position where he doesn't really need to impress anyone anymore with his size, which is always kind of the thing that gets you your foot in the door at WWE. So.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, he's only 3 years into WWE, so...
Yeah, and he's not in bad shape by any means.
No.
So, Sheamus is even earlier in his WWE career. He's only been here like a year or two, right?
2 years, yeah. 2009, I think he did.
Yeah, because he came out on like a House of Fire, beat Cena for the championship, and then...
Like we were talking about the other day, Sheamus has the perfect wrestling career.
In reverse.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, so... But if you look at Sheamus, who at this point in time probably retired, even though unofficially announced at this point, because he's had the spinal stenosis like Edge had, and
his hasn't been or wasn't as bad.
Right, his wasn't as bad, and I think that was a lot of the reason for the bar was it kind of squeaked an extra year or two out of his career there near the end.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you look at his career, it was in reverse. Bunch of tag team championships with his partner, then a feud with his partner, a bunch of mid-card title runs, and then big shock win over the long-established champion.
Yep. And again, that's in reverse.
Right, that's in reverse.
What actually happened is
shows up out of nowhere, wins the title.
Yeah, because...
And then just plummets back down the card a bit and lingers for a while. Gets thrown into a dumb stable at one point for a fluke championship win that didn't last long.
He actually debuted in 2009 and would... In June of 2009, he debuted. And
right, so not even 2 years at this point.
Yep. And he ended up winning the title 2 months after that?
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry. No, not 2 months. At the end of the year, in December of that same year.
So, yeah. That's pretty early by anyone's standards.
Yeah, you want to talk about a rocket.
Right. So, yeah, about it. Let me rephrase that. So, he had the tag team championships, feuded with his partner, had a really dumb stable where he won the title, bunch of mid-card titles, and then finally winning the big one over the big champ.
Right.
Again, that would have been in reverse. How it actually turned out, hey, I would have taken it as a career in the WWE.
I mean, it's not one of the worst ones around.
And people always used to dump on Sheamus, and I've seen more recently people saying he's someone that we'll kind of miss once he's actually fully acknowledgedly gone, and I think that's probably correct. I was never a huge fan of his, but...
I mean, he always played a really good heel, but
yeah.
it wasn't the stereotypical foreign heel either.
Right. He was like somewhere between like the monster and foreign heel, and he was good at getting heat. He wasn't great on the mic, but he was good at getting heat, like the right kind of heat, I'll say. And
he was also big enough where he could hit those crazy power moves and you still be like, oh, damn, that did not look fun.
Right. But small enough that you could still get in there and do stuff with him. Like, he's not like the Big Show where...
Right. He's big enough where he could hit the power moves, but also, like you said, small enough where Cena could pick him up on his shoulders and hit the AA and it'd be like, oh, yep, makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. This match in and of itself, really good. Kofi being super athletic, showing like a lot of like the different stuff Kofi did. Like, so it's a tables match at one point. They have a table set up in the corner.
Leapfrog Sheamus, and
so Sheamus was laid out kind of on the table, and Kofi went to dive on him to put him through the table. Sheamus moves at the last second. Kofi just jumps in, lands on the middle turnbuckle, straddling the table.
Yep.
And there's a few other spots like that were just showing off Kofi being crazy athletic.
And I think this is when the start of his
funny Rumble stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doing the crazy non-eliminations in the Rumble, which, are always entertaining.
Pogo sticking an announcer's chair.
It really, going back and watching this stuff, makes you just go, yep, Kofi definitely, he worked for it, he got the title, and he deserves to. So
yeah, absolutely. The finish comes when Sheamus is on a table on the outside.
So it was a little bit wonky. Yeah, it's on the outside. Sheamus was knocked out of the ring and was kind of dazed and went from leaning on the ring apron to leaning on the table.
And as he's leaning on the table, Kofi does a double leg drop off of the top.
Yeah, he almost does like a cannonball. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if you ever saw it, but Doink the Clown used to do as his finisher. It was basically a cannonball, like a bonsai drop to someone standing.
Yeah,
would just sit on their chest and they'd go down together. It looked like a really rough impact on Sheamus.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you can see Sheamus's face as soon as Kofi hits him. It was just like,
yeah. So, hey, props for Sheamus taking it.
Right.
New U.S. champion, Kofi Kingston. One of many mid-card titles. I don't know if it was even his first one, but...
I think it might have been.
It may have been his first mid-card title. So, I know Kofi and Punk had held the tag team belts together like in the mid-2000s at some point.
Yeah, it was just before it was before the whole New Nexus and Straight Edge Society thing. No,
it wouldn't have been that recent, would it?
I think it was.
I think it was much sooner because I think it was before... No, it was right after Punk left ECW because it was still super...
Oh, yeah,
happy to
'cause
be
he-
here, fresh-faced Punk.
But and he still had the long hair and everything.
Yeah,
like that.
it was before Punk's Money in the Bank win.
It was before he got the world title.
Yeah,
Because
so-
I'm still picturing him like he is now with the slick back hair. and
Yeah, with too much pomade.
yeah.
Yeah, it was back when he had the longer hair. So, all right, congrats to Kofi on that one. All right, next we hit the low point of the show.
Ugh.
We had our tag team country whipping match of Jack Swagger and Michael Cole versus Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross.
I'll be honest with you. I watched this pay-per-view live. This match was awful live. It was awful now. I skipped it.
So I watched the full thing, which is only 7 minutes, thankfully. Not even the shortest match on the card, but could have been. So if you
Should have
watched it
been.
about double speed, it probably would have been fine. So it's kind of funny that Cole comes out initially dressed in bubble wrap. So hang on, rewind a second. So in case you're not familiar with what a tag team country whooping match is, that's when everyone has a leather belt, much like we talked about last week in our bunkhouse match.
And they just whip each other.
And you're basically just whipping each other. So you start with a weapon. So they come out. Starts with Jack Swagger and Jerry Lawler in the ring. Swagger's like just kind of imposing and threatening Lawler, who just starts whooping the crap out of him.
Yep.
Pretty funny. Swagger tags. Cole's like, tag me in. I got the bubble wrap on. Because he came out, he just came out wrapped in a layer of bubble wrap, which was, I thought it was kind of funny. Because then he tags in, and Lawler starts whipping him with the belt, and he just, nothing. Just, haha, I've got bubble wrap on. Haha, you can't do nothing about it. Haha, haha, haha. So
Awful.
then Lawler's like, okay, and then decks him. And then Cole's trying to scramble out of the ring, and
Doesn't he proceed to rip the bubble wrap off of him?
then Jerry rips all the bubble wrap off and starts whooping him, and ha ha ha, funny. It was another dumb finish, reminiscent of their Mania. So I think we had said after we covered Mania that I think I'd said the next night on Raw they had another match and they knocked the gimmick out of Cole. I was wrong. Apparently this whole evil Cole thing went on all damn summer. It ends with him getting the evil knocked out of him, but still. The end is just a fluke. Everyone's Jack Swagger comes in and JR is about to put the ankle lock on him or something dumb, and Michael Cole ends up rolling up JR again, and our bad guys escape again when it was looking real bad for him for quite a while.
Yeah.
Complete stinker, by far the worst thing on the card, but whatever, moving on. Oh, we will say, you were saying earlier about the 3-man booth.
So the original booth at the beginning of the pay-per-view, actually for pretty much just the first match, was Booker T, Josh Matthews, and the King.
Yep.
Wasn't a fan.
Wasn't great.
King didn't add much to the first match, and Booker T hadn't gotten to his random mumbling and not making sense.
Booker T wasn't great, but he was passably decent.
Yeah.
King, I've never been a huge fan of him. During the Attitude Era, before it really became puppies,
Right.
he was okay. But after that, his shtick gets real old real fast. He's not like Bobby. He's a great talker, but he's not as quick-witted as Heenan. Even though they're both very similar, but the problem was once he got on that whole puppies thing and he stopped being a heel announcer and was just a smarmy face announcer.
Yeah.
And it made his shtick come off real tired, and he never felt like he balanced the booth out properly.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Later on in the evening, I forget during which match, Cole would come back out to his coal mine, the plexiglass booth, and I'll touch on his commentary a little bit later, but one of the few times I'll ever say this, once Michael Cole came back, commentary improved.
Yeah, but I always forget that Josh Matthews was on commentary for a short bit.
Yeah.
He wasn't as bad as I remember him being.
No, I mean, doesn't he do impacts?
He does. He does impacts now, and it's not awful.
I'm assuming he's learned a lot in the last near decade.
I mean, between him and Don Callis, how can you go wrong with a commentary team?
Fair enough. I mean, I was never huge. I don't think I really cared about Josh Matthews either way, but I will say this is actually near the time I stopped watching wrestling for about 5 years. I was there for Summer of Punk. I stopped watching at, I believe I can pinpoint it down to Survivor Series, because I believe that's when Punk lost the title back to Cena.
I think so, yeah.
It was either Survivor Series or the following pay-per-view in December. But either way, I was here for Summer of Punk. Once Punk lost the title from that whole thing, I punched out, which I guess in retrospect, oops, because I missed his 1-year reign. But
yeah, when he was a Paul Heyman guy.
Yeah, well, you live, you learn. All right, next up was our Falls Count Anywhere match between dashing Cody Rhodes and Rey Mysterio.
I always forget how much I love the dashing Cody Rhodes gimmick.
So, at this time, I wasn't watching SmackDown. I didn't really know much. I was not a huge Cody Rhodes fan when he first showed up because he was too small. Like, he wasn't small, he was slight.
Yeah.
He was very thin, and he didn't wear, like, knee pads.
But
so he did wear knee pads that looked ginormous and made him just look like a gangly kid.
But he also didn't have a gimmick really either when he first debuted.
Right. He showed up and his gimmick was, hey, Dusty's son, happy to be here.
Right. But when he started doing the dashing Cody Rhodes,
yeah,
it showed just how good of a heel he could be.
From his pre-match promos, this was so good.
The stuff coming out with the bag on, or the
putting the bags over people's heads, with the assistants.
Oh, it was so good. And when he was dashing before he put the mask on, it was a lot better. I shouldn't say it was a lot better. It was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Then he gets his face broken, and
his face becomes disfigured.
He becomes the broken dashing Cody Rhodes.
So I think you'll appreciate this reference that I'm about to make. Hopefully all of the listeners are going to get where I'm going with this. Know who he reminded me of in this? Dr. Doom.
Yes.
Because he's this super vain person that got quote-unquote disfigured, which is questionable to begin with, hides behind a mask and is now just like, all right, the world has wronged me, and now I'm going to show you what a terrible mistake you've made. But he's so... both Dr. Doom and Cody were so... they were so certain about how right they were and their view on everything. And that's what really makes a great villain, is someone that not only believes in themselves, believes they're the hero.
Yeah. And especially putting him against Rey Mysterio, who a guy that has a mask but doesn't hide behind it.
Right. But it gives him an opportunity to call out that, like, quote unquote hypocrisy, whether it's real or manufactured. He had a valid point. Hey, you wear a mask. You're hiding your face. So it's a real great little thing to latch onto whenever you can have a villain be correct, which the new Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
Like, great heels come from a place of truth.
Yes, exactly.
It's a truth no one really wants to acknowledge. It's a dirty, nasty truth that it's inconvenient for everyone to acknowledge. But we all just... because there's a lot of things in everyday life where we're like, maybe I could be better. Hey, maybe I could not eat that cookie today, but it's just a cookie. I'll be fine. I'll go to the gym tomorrow. And we never do.
Or one of those where, this should probably go in the recycling, but the garbage can's right here. Let me just throw it over here.
Right. And like, you can take that so far, like the new Dan O'Brien, where it's like, hey, I probably even shouldn't, like, if I'm a very ethical person and I want all of my stuff to be sourced as ethically as possible because I don't believe in exploiting anyone for my benefit, I shouldn't have a cell phone. But I do have a cell phone because, well, it makes my life so much easier and everyone has a cell phone. So, I mean, but everyone's doing this, so it's okay if I do this one thing.
Right.
So, anyways, yes. Cody Rhodes, Ray, pinfalls count anywhere. Starts in the ring, ends up going way up into the stands, into the concession area. So Cody at one point does a disaster kick off of like a poster stand or something in the back.
Yeah, and Ray ends up doing a nice little crossbody off of the concession line. Yeah.
Overall, it wasn't the greatest match in the world because it didn't really let Ray do Ray stuff. And I think Cody was still kind of developing his shtick a little bit, but it was still really good.
Yeah, it was For it being, because I believe it was one of the shorter matches on the card.
It was just under 12 minutes, which was, it was about on par for this card. It was like right in the middle.
So they did a lot with the amount of time that they had, and they moved around and did this whole Falls Count Anywhere thing justice.
Yeah, and they definitely... There was one point where I think Cody blew a spot because Ray actually got up on like a concrete wall, like a half wall, like in the stands when they were coming back to the ring, and it looked like he was going to try to run down it and hit a move onto Cody, but Cody had already like gone back to the ring. I don't know if it was necessarily a blown spot, but it looked like looked like Ray was setting up for something that they were supposed to do, and Cody missed the cue and just moved on.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it also works as kind of a version of Samoa Joe's nope.
Right, exactly.
The nope move is always great against the cruisers. Look, you're going to do something fancy. I'm just going to walk away and not get hit by this.
I wish they did more of that, but
it's a nice thing that you have to be careful with it because it's really awesome when it's well done. But if you do it too much, it's going to overexpose the business and be like, wait, why does anyone ever get hit by any of this? Does not make any sense. It's like, wait, why'd you stand up and not just roll away, roll the way across the ring? All right. Anyways, Ray ends up winning. What was the finish? It was something a little. Oh, they totally botched the end too.
Yeah, they did.
So Cody sets Ray up on the top turnbuckle, and I forget exactly what he's going to go for, but he follows him. Looks like he's going to go for a superplex, and Ray hits the green mist to his face.
Yeah,
but it wasn't green enough, and the announcers were like, "Wait, what just happened?" And didn't really like. They should have been screaming like, "Ray with the mist," which. It would have been tough because they never had Muta in WWF, but they had Tajiri mist people.
Oh, yeah. Tajiri was, when he was in his main run, he was misting people left and right.
So they could have acknowledged it. Anyways, they didn't. Hits the mist, then hit, I don't remember if he hit the 619 after the mist, but then he hits the, what do they call it? Drop the dime, West Coast pop, one or the other.
Dropping the dime is when he just does the like splash.
Oh, the dead weight splash.
Yeah, the West Coast pop is when he does the
slingshot off the rope.
Yeah, like the plancha thing.
Okay, so that's what it was. All right, so he hits the West Coast pop, gets the win there. Yeah, Cody would unfortunately kind of linger in mediocrity for a while. He'd get tag titles with his brother at some point, and
he got tag titles with
a few people.
Yeah.
Oh, they would do Rhodes Scholars right after this, I think.
Yep. Him and DiBiase Jr. also did the whole Legacy thing.
Pretty sure that Legacy would have been before this, right?
I'm
almost certain Legacy was before this.
It was just before it. So I think they won the tag belts at one point because he took it off of himself and Hardcore Holly.
Yes, that's when he joined Legacy.
Yeah.
So
he had 3-4 tag belt runs. He had the IC belt for a little while.
Yeah.
But clearly doing much better outside of WWE.
Kind of doing okay these days, as it turns out. We think, we hope. Like, again, we're clearly AEW fanboys, but I don't want to say that it's a proven, guaranteed thing at this point.
Well, I mean, even if without the AEW thing, he's been ROH World Champ.
Right.
He's been
New Japan US Champ.
Exactly. He's doing okay for himself.
Right. Let's touch on AEW real quick because as AEW's been going on, I've actually been listening to 83 Weeks lately, Eric Bischoff's podcast, and something Eric keeps saying that he was trying to do for the longest time was he was never trying to beat the WWE, at least not at their own game. He was just trying to be different because, according to him, there's three things. When you're in like competition with someone, there's three things you can do. You can be better, you can be worse, or you can be different. He's like, we can't be better. We're not going to beat them at their own game. I sure as hell don't want to be worse than them.
Right.
So let's be different. And he was trying to be different.
I think that's what AEW is shooting for hard.
I think it's what they're going to shoot for. I hope it works out for them. But I was sitting there thinking, what's something that WWE could do really well that AEW couldn't? Then it happened this week. Firefly Funhouse.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that there's any way AEW would be able to have that kind of production right off the bat.
I don't think they could really do that character justice. Their AEW is going to be a lot like the NWA as far as they're going to be more rooted in reality. That's going to let them do certain like NWO style storylines, like those gritty, more reality TV based ones. But they couldn't have The Undertaker. Not as, like, the original Deadman gimmick.
I don't think they could right off of the bat. I think maybe
Right.
once they get established and start doing things.
It would take them a few years, and it might feel weird and forced. Like, they could have Joey Ryan coming out with, like, the penis druids, but that's not the same thing. That's a comedy spot.
Right. The only one I think that is going to end up being anywhere close is probably Jimmy Havoc or that Darby Allin. But that's going to be more of a hardcore thing.
Right, they're going to be more hardcore, almost more of like a heavy metal style. I mean, I don't know if that makes sense, but get what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're going to be the emo kids of the roster.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're not going to be trying to say, I'm supernatural. It's more just this guy's a little bit out there.
Right.
He's not superhuman, whereas like this Bray thing's coming off a little bit superhuman, a little bit. It's a step towards sci-fi.
Yeah.
It's a step into fiction. So I think AEW would have a problem doing a step into like a pure fiction character. Not saying they can't do it, but it's going to be a little bit tougher for them, I think. So,
Yeah.
but that's a good thing. They shouldn't be good at everything.
No, maybe don't do the rooted in story stuff. Maybe again do the reality more working stuff.
Exactly. So have strengths, play to them, make sure those strengths are different than the ones the competition has. Everyone will probably do good then.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, little sidetrack there. Who were we talking about? Okay. So, yep. Bray beats Cody. Next up, we have a Divas loser. Let me start over. A Divas loser leaves the WWE match. Yep. It was the breakup of Laycool. Tragic. Layla versus Michelle McCool. This match actually, it wasn't good, but it was better than it should have been.
I don't know about that.
Go back. Did you actually watch it again?
I did.
They hit a few big moves. It wasn't great, but the moves they were hitting looked better than a lot of stuff that was happening during this era. It was better than it had. It was better than it should have been. Still wasn't good, but... So, finish was Michelle McCool was picking up Layla. I don't even remember what she was picking her up for. Like an F5 or something.
Yeah, she used to do a TKO every now and then.
Okay, yeah, picking up for a TKO. Layla manages to backslide through it, gets the pin. She's almost, she's like, I guess the whole, so again, I wasn't paying attention to SmackDown. This was a SmackDown storyline.
Yep.
I know Laycool were basically doing the beautiful people gimmick and were very hated by all of the divas.
Exactly.
All the divas were... there was a promo before this match at some point where Layla kind of walked into the dressing room in tears to the other divas saying, I know you guys don't like me, but I forget exactly, but it was not a bad little promo. It was like, I know you guys don't like me, but if this is my last day here, I'll miss you guys, something like that.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll never take away from Layla or McCool is that they always were great on the mics. They were the... I wouldn't even say the beautiful people. They were the original Iconics.
That's fair. And we're fans of theirs, so.
My only thing is that, again, knowing what I know now and knowing what women's wrestling could be,
yeah,
it's hard to watch this kind of stuff.
That's fair. It's one of those things in retrospect. So, but during the time, like I said, so going back to that backstage segment where she walks in and is like, I know you guys don't like me, but like, I hope we can kind of be friends or something afterwards. And I forget who steps up. I think it was Kelly, which,
yeah.
But she's something like, you're right, we don't like you, but we hate Michelle more. Go win type thing. And
yeah,
it was not a bad little moment, all things considered.
Yeah, but I mean,
as far as a redemption story goes, that was a nice little bit of redemption for a character.
It was, but again, especially coming from Trish and Lita to this, to what we have now.
Yeah. This was definitely the dark days, but given it was the dark days...
It was the super dark days.
Given that, though, yes, through 2019 glasses, it wasn't good. But in 2011 glasses, I'm willing to bet it was a little bit better than... Yeah, you're not going to give this one to me.
Nope.
I'm going to stick with it, though.
Nope.
Anyways, Layla beats Michelle, and then we have the debuting Karma come out and absolutely lay out and already upset Michelle McCool.
Which is also upsetting because she did nothing in WWE.
That was all her own fault from as much as I can tell from any of the backstage stuff.
True. Very true.
But yes, it was it's really unfortunate because if things had gone to plan, I feel like we may have gotten the women's revolution in 2011 instead of 2017.
Yeah, it would have come quite a bit sooner because, again, Karma at this point had all of those fantastic matches with Gail Kim in Impact.
And Gail Kim was in WWE at this time.
Uh-huh. We could have had, just like
I forget what was her name in TNA?
Awesome Kong.
Awesome Kong, thank you.
We could have gotten so similar to AJ facing Joe or AJ facing Kurt or any of these, these matches that happened in Impact Wrestling that they acknowledged in Impact Wrestling, that could have happened almost 10 years sooner.
Yeah. And could you imagine Beth versus Karma? We'll call her Karma, I guess.
Beth versus Karma, or
even Natalia versus Karma.
Yeah.
Divas of Doom versus a three-way between the three of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would have been great.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's really unfortunate. I don't know Karma's full situation. I don't necessarily know if it was her fault, what exactly happened. There was a couple false starts with her, and then bad feelings all around, and we're done here.
Yeah.
It just, there was a lot of build-up, never any payoff, and it was unfortunate what could have been.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Next, we had the ladder match for the vacant World Heavyweight Championship. So, after WrestleMania this year was Edge versus Del Rio.
Yep.
Edge winning the title.
Yep.
Winning or retaining?
Retaining.
Retaining the title. The next night on Raw, we had the unfortunate announcement of my neck's done. I can't keep going on. Super emotional night from Edge. Retiring, giving up the belt. The next night on SmackDown, furthering the retirement speech.
And actually giving up the
up the title. Yeah, the thing I always remember is the close of his speech on Raw. I'm going to go home and eat some ice cream.
Yep.
So thankfully, Edge went on to have a pretty good acting career, if not very prolific, but definitely has paid his bills and given him a comfortable life.
I mean, getting yourself 50 episodes of a TV show on Sci-Fi. Not the worst thing.
Not the worst. And then getting on Vikings, which is I'd say it's kind of like Sons of Anarchy, where it's got a pretty hardcore fan base, even though it's not the biggest show in the world.
Yeah, it's...
Sons of Anarchy probably a little bit bigger than Vikings, but still.
I would say out of... It would go Vikings, Sons of Anarchy, and then Game of Thrones, kind of all in that similar line, because Game of Thrones has the hardcore fans. There's just a lot more of them.
Game of Thrones is huge. Okay, so I see what you're saying. So, anyways, this was a crazy good match. Definitely brought the feel. So let's spoil the ending. Christian ends up winning his first and only World Heavyweight Championship, as we had mentioned previously.
No, he gets it again.
Does he get it off Randy once?
Yeah, he gets it off Randy once and then loses it like a week later again.
Yeah, so he never gets a real run with it, but
he gets it.
This was his first time. Super feel-good moment, especially after everything that happened to Edge. And
especially with Edge
showing up, yeah. So
overall, the match was
really good. The
match
itself was really good, though. So, again, ladder matches have similar issues with me that the last man standing matches have, where you're always forced to have a really awful I'm dead, I'm perfectly fine bit where, guy's climbing the ladder, other guy's dead, he just got smashed with the ladder, he got a finisher done on the ladder, got to stop him real quick. And
yeah,
that always just... But they didn't do that too much here, thankfully.
No, and I think the reason they didn't do that too much is because Christian was in the match.
Right, and as they had said, the announce team had said, Christian's been in so many ladder matches that he's pretty damn comfortable on a ladder.
Right. I mean, especially towards the end at the point where he shifts himself from one side of the ladder to the other, like almost seamlessly. Kind of scared me for a minute. I thought he was going to fall off at one point.
Yeah, well, there's another point where Del Rio's on the outside. Christian climbs up the turnbuckles to go to do something to him. He comes running up and shoves Christian off of the top turnbuckle, but there was a ladder there that Christian just jumps onto. Del Rio walks around the turn post and then gets cross-bodied by Christian right after.
Yep.
Cool little spot. Yeah, Christian is really... I don't know if he's underrated now because I feel like people have appreciated him more since, but Christian really good at coming up with stuff for ladder matches, and it's not necessarily the biggest, flashiest thing, but it just makes it feel good and authentic.
Yeah, it makes it feel authentic, but he makes everybody else better in the match too.
Right. He adds a lot of good foundational technical stuff that just makes it feel more cohesive and less of a wrestling match, more of a actual
like a fight,
yeah.
A fight that happens to have ladders in it.
Right. It takes this completely absurd context that we all have to kind of agree to ahead of time that, yes, this is a wrestling match where we have to use a ladder to climb up and get a belt that's suspended above the ring, which, yeah, when someone is trying to mug you for your wallet, you say, hang on, let's hang on the wallet up and we'll have a ladder match, and whoever can get this wallet gets to keep it.
Right.
Like, the circumstances are so absurd in ladder matches. But he kind of lets you forget about how absurd it is because everything just makes sense in the context of this thing that's a little silly. Some ladder matches, the spots are so contrived where, okay, we're going to set up 19 ladders all next to each other in 8 pyramids with tables, and I'm going to shove you 20 feet from the ring to the floor, which are cool-looking spots, but sometimes...
the fact that it takes 10 minutes to set up and...
Exactly. Some of this stuff is so absurd and so forced and contrived that it takes you out a little bit. And like, cool, you like seeing the big spot, but you're also like, yeah, it's a little silly. Not to mention we're all laying here dead for the next 20 minutes. Christian stuff may not be as big and as flashy, but it looks brutal still, but not necessarily, oh, that man's dead. How did he just pop back up to stop the other guy from getting off the ladder?
Yeah. And again, I think a lot of that is because he's been in so many of those, but also that he's got that kind of creative ideas to do stuff like that.
And he understands that sometimes you need to reel it back a little bit and make the small things count.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing for Edge and Christian both, where they both appreciate the smaller things.
Because if you listen to their podcast, they nitpick Christian nitpicks
especially,
a lot of things because he likes the smaller things that make things... His philosophy is if you can get the smaller things good, everything else will be fine.
Right. Which, how many different sports, creative endeavors, how much of everything is learn the basics. When you've learned the basics and the fundamentals, everything else will kind of flow into place.
Right.
I mean, I do like wood crafting stuff and like learn how to deal with like doing the tiny little annoying things properly, and you can make something big and fancy because it's just a bunch of little things done over and over.
Right.
All right. Anyways, again, another great match on the card. And then we come to, I'll be honest, the match I skipped, the shortest match on the card. Okay. I don't know if this is actually worse than the country whooping match, but it's definitely worse than the women's match. It was the Lumberjack match for the WWE Tag Team Championships.
Oh, yeah, I skipped it.
It was Kane and the Big Show versus the Core, being Ezekiel Jackson and Wade Barrett. I, too, skipped it except for the finish. It was dumb. We're moving on.
Yep.
All right. So our final match of the evening was a triple threat steel cage match for the WWE Championship. It saw our champion, The Miz, face John Morrison and John Cena.
By far, one of the best cage matches I think I've ever seen.
So, much like my issue with ladder matches and last man standing matches, cage matches also have this annoying habit of where they need someone to go from dead to actively stopping their opponent super quick. But having this be a triple threat match between these three guys,
it limits it quite a bit.
It took that problem completely away because, I just did a giant move to this guy. Now I'm going to go deal with the other guy. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to escape. Now it's completely reasonable that first guy can get back up and stop me.
Yep.
This was so good.
Yeah, I think this was one of Cena's better matches because I think at this point in his career he had kind of plateaued, and facing Miz and Morrison, he had to kind of shift into a higher gear.
Right. So we were already at the point where people were doing the let's go Cena sucks.
It wasn't as loud as...
It wasn't, but it was definitely there.
it was the start of it for sure.
Right. It was present. There was a decent storyline here between Miz and Cena, and Miz and Morrison had their own thing, and there didn't really need to be anything between Cena and Morrison other than, okay.
Right. You're in the match, you're trying to win the title and keep me from getting it.
Right. And they were the first two to enter the ring, but because there was no direct animosity, it was totally fine that they were both just kind of like, we're just going to be here, we're going to do our thing, I'm going to do my thing, you do your thing, and may the better man win kind of thing, where they weren't out there being buddy-buddy, holding anything back from each other, but they weren't also there with a blood vendetta that would have forced them to act out of character.
Right.
They were doing this annoying thing with Morrison where parkour.
The backstage things got me every single time he showed up, where he's just standing on like a bunch of concrete slabs, and then he like parkour through some
off some stairs because he had his like jacket hung up in the rafters somewhere, like
jumps onto the other side and then sits there and starts doing like these super fake stretches and then parkours again back away.
It was so silly because they were forcing this parkour thing so hard, and it was so not called for. Morrison, super talented. Stop watching the match. This is not worth watching.
I'm still listening. I have to laugh at Cole slapping his belly with the...
Yeah, so again, we always have kind of like, usually we have the show that we're watching in the background on a TV here, and we just hit the point where it's the country whooping match that Jacob had skipped, and now he's finally watching it and seeing how silly Cole is. Told you it was entertaining. Anyways, yeah, they were pushing this parkour thing with Morrison really hard, and...
It was obnoxious.
It was to the point where it felt so forced, like... Why not just show him doing it and be like, yep, parkour master? But they had to do it like 8 times during the course of the night.
Yeah.
Which would have come in really cool a few points during the evening.
He's always been the super crazy athletic guy.
Right. So I haven't been watching any of the Impact stuff with him lately. I know he's Johnny Impact over there, but...
He's Johnny whatever wrestling company he works for.
Yeah, he's currently their champ right now, correct?
Yes.
He's currently getting super kicked by Lance Storm.
Correct.
And in a feud with Brian Cage where where Lance Storm is going to be the authority figure who's probably going to swerve and turn on Brian Cage or something.
I hope not, because they've kept Brian Cage from getting that belt so many times now. It's like, all right, just put the damn thing on the guy and move on.
It's kind of like do or die on pull the trigger on the guy.
Right.
It's like pull the trigger or you've actually wasted him now.
Yes.
So, anywho, what a tangent that was. So again, this cage match was super good because, like I said, all of the normal trappings that I hate about a steel cage match where someone has to get absolutely murdered by a move so the other guy has time to get out. And I've always had a bit of a problem with the steel cage where someone gets over but then gets in a headlock and has to like get pulled back over the thing. That's always been a little meh, but a few moments of that here and there aside. Really, really good. And the commentary team here, as I was kind of alluding to earlier, Booker T is the face announcer. Cole is the heel announcer. Cole is absolutely giving John Morrison his due when he does something amazing, does something crazy, does something really impressive. Booker T giving it up for The Miz as appropriate.
Right.
And it actually added a lot to the match for me because it's, hey, these guys are so good that no matter the little biases we may have as announcers, these guys are outperforming those.
And again, this was before Booker T ended up hitting his incoherent rambling and you have no idea what he's saying kind of
Shucky ducky quack quack.
Yeah, no. And it the two of them and Josh Matthews kind of playing mediator between the two but leaning more towards face helped quite a bit.
Right. Definitely good. Something that I'll say it here just because, I don't know, it's a thing I've been thinking a lot recently. I absolutely hate that WWE play-by-play guys don't actually ever do any play. They never call moves except unless it's Mauro Ranallo.
Yeah, Mauro's almost the only one that does it. Cole does it every now and then.
But Cole doesn't actually know half the moves.
But the other thing, too, is that Cole is too busy trying to keep Corey and Renee on track that he can't call the moves.
Right. I mean, at least some of the bigger moves. Like, they just never, oh, what a move. Like, that's all you get out of guys most of the time. And
except for
that I dislike.
Except for Mauro, who comes from the MMA background where he has to know the
Right.
names of the arm bars and the different submissions and things like that.
Exactly. So, all right, that little nitpick aside, again, probably by far one of the best cage matches I've ever seen.
Oh, easily. And can we talk about that bump the Miz took?
Which one? Oh, yes.
The superplex one, right?
Right. So,
The
you mean the
pseudo-
super brainbuster?
Yeah.
So, yeah, at one point, Miz was going to climb out. Morrison and Cena both. So it's in the middle of the cage. Cena and Morrison run over, one then the other. I think Cena started with him, and I think Morrison caught up with them. They both catch him, but they're both standing perched on the top rope, standing on the middle of the rope itself, and they go to do a double superplex to Miz back into the ring. The problem was these guys are used to the tension of the ropes in the corners, where there's a lot more tension and a lot less give to the ropes. So they go to superplex Miz backwards, assuming that they'll end up basically in the middle of the ring after going off the top rope.
Nope.
The problem was, as soon as they pick up Miz, and now there's 3 guys weight on the rope, the middle rope having too much. I don't know if the ropes weren't tensioned enough, or it's just, that's how it's going to work in the middle of the rope like that.
Right.
The middle of the rope, just instead of supporting them, just sags down even further, causing basically Morrison and Cena to go basically straight down with their superplex instead of arcing backwards with it. And Miz basically comes right down on the back of his head / shoulders instead of on his back.
Yeah.
Because they basically just dropped straight down instead of arcing backwards.
It looked like it was quite painful.
Yeah, it became a super double brainbuster instead of a super or a double superplex, which
To the point where it was one of those moves where after he was on the ground, you were like, "Oh, is he dead?"
yeah, it's one of those.
Okay, he's moving.
Okay, no one's calling for anything. I don't see an X.
All right, we're good.
Okay,
We're good.
he's
We'll
moving.
keep going.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he's moving. And you're just okay. Miz is alive. Good. No matter what you thought of the character. Oh, good, he's alive. The finish of this thing was a little bit derpy, I thought. At one point, Morrison's about to escape. R-Truth runs down because Morrison had taken R-Truth's spot in the match, and R-Truth was butthurt about it. This was...
Which was so dumb because, again, my biggest issue with cage matches and Hell in a Cell matches in WWE is they're supposed to keep people out or keep people in. They're not supposed to let people in.
So that's actually historically one of the problems with WWE cage matches, is that escaping is a way to win. The point of a cage was always to keep the 2 guys in because normally, the heel's always like doing a dastardly deed and then escaping before the good guy can get his comeuppance. The idea is keep them in the cage. When the point is when you can escape the cage as a win, that takes away that whole point of the cage. So, yeah, that's something WWE added and was dumb, but
Awful.
yeah.
Just
Anyways,
awful.
R-Truth runs out right as Morrison's about to win, beats up Morrison, hits him with his weird... It's like a combination... It's like a stunner variant of a flatliner. Because instead of just going straight back with it, he jumps up in the air and like stunners the guy. But the flatliner's always been a tough move because it's literally you're rock bottoming yourself. And Truth makes it look even worse.
Yeah, I mean, shortly after this, he goes back to using the spinning scissor kick as his finisher.
Good, because there's literally no difference between R-Truth hitting his finisher and The Rock hitting a rock bottom on Truth.
I think the biggest thing was with Booker T on commentary, they didn't want to have him be doing the scissor kick.
So instead, it looks like someone's doing a reverse bookend?
That's it.
Okay, great. So Truth runs out, pummels Morrison, hits his finish on Morrison, lays the boots to Cena for a little bit, and then climbs over the cage showing, look, I would have won if I was in this match. Ha ha ha. Which never did anything for R-Truth. Nope. This was about the end of R-Truth's little main event run from late 2010 to early 2011.
Yeah, because then after this, he puts Cena through a table, and Punk sits on the stage and drops a pipe bomb.
Yep. So Miz picks up Cena. They do some stuff, and then Cena ends up hitting the super attitude adjustment off the top rope onto Miz. Gets the 1-2-3, gets his championship for the 10th time? 11th? Something like that. 10th. Makes sense. So, all in all, again, probably one of the top 3 cage matches I've seen, honestly.
Yeah, and overall, probably one of the best pay-per-views that WWE put out in a long time.
Yeah, this was definitely a weird era for them, and this was definitely one of their better ones.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it described that WWE typically has a weaker undercard and then a stronger like main event, whereas WCW had a problem with putting on a great undercard and then having a flop of a main event.
Yeah.
So,
This
one
though,
was through and through pretty good.
Yeah, this one was consistent, if anything else.
Right. Few little downs with the whooping match, the women's loser leaves town match, and that tag team match, but those were also all the shortest ones. I think that women's match was better than anyone's going to give it credit for. I don't think it was good, but I think, as we said last week, the wrestling part of it wasn't good. The pro wrestling part of it was good, though.
Yes, exactly.
And for what it's worth, the emotion from Layla in both that backstage skit and in the ring was really good, I thought. I literally know nothing about Lay Cool. Never actually saw them because they were over on SmackDown. I didn't watch it. This was good, though.
I'm still not going to give it to you.
You don't have to. I'm taking it. Okay. Anything going on in more recent news we want to cover before we head home?
I don't think so. I mean, we're getting that Impact Rebellion pay-per-view tomorrow.
Did we ever cover that Goldust is going to be on AEW's Double or Nothing?
We didn't.
I think...
I honestly didn't know that he got released back in January.
Yeah, WWE is in a really weird place right now with releasing people. So last week, Luke Harper announced that he wanted out, but it looks like they're going to screw him like they screwed Neville.
Yep, they tacked on... Well, Neville was a little bit different. They just made him ride out his contract.
Right.
Harper, they're having him... They're tacking on 6 months onto the end of his contract.
Yeah, it sounds like they're going to...
Because he was out with that hand surgery.
Right, and then the no-compete, meaning he's probably not going to be available until about Mania time next year.
Yeah. Yeah, well, no, they said that they might even end up keeping him until Mania of next year.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Which, from the rumblings, make it sound that this might be a punishment type thing or a... WWE making an example out of Harper.
Yeah. Well, if you ask for your release, here's what's going to happen.
Right. If you're at all valuable to us, we're going to say no, and we're going to basically tank your worth by take you off TV. And
I wouldn't even say if you're at all valuable to us. If you're valuable
to the competition,
anybody else, we're going to tank you.
They're trying to poison the well and negate the value that he may have elsewhere, which... Again, crappy move. Don't.
Yeah, because he would have some very big upside in AEW.
Yeah, we think he'd be a great monster heel over there.
He'd be the biggest guy on the roster.
Right, and we're really trying hard not to say every guy that gets released by WWE should go over to AEW, and AEW should pick up every WWE talent that gets let go, because they shouldn't.
But they should pick up Luke Harper.
But Harper is a... Oh, man, we sound like fanboys, but we think he's a different story.
Well, on top of that, too, he already has an in over at that company because he's one of his best friends, like, growing up was a guy that's in a VP of something in AEW. I can't remember the guy's name. But he's...
Great story.
Well, like, they grew up together, and he's VP of, like, merchandise or something along...
It's not Cody, it's not Kenny, it's not the Bucks.
It's not a wrestler. It's like a
one
normal
of the
human beings.
Okay. Normal human beings. All right.
Normal humanoid.
Right. So, anyways, yeah, apparently Dustin Rhodes was released, and they're going to have the brother versus brother match, and I really had hoped that this would have happened in WWE for a world title program, because... I think their history in WWE would have given them a couple great moments, basically, and WWE loves great moments. I think there would have been a great way to do like a storyline where if Cody came back and he comes back from an injury, he's going to team up with his brother again as Stardust, and then goes, no, this is the stupidest damn thing, lays Goldust out, puts him out on injury for a while, goes, does his own thing, ends up with the world title at some point. And at some point, Dustin comes back, gets involved in that, wins the title off Cody at some point for just a short bit, drops the title back to him, but
Give him a Christian run with the title.
exactly. Just give him the quick feel good.
Put the belt on him, take it away from him.
Exactly. Or even have Dustin come back, win it off someone, and then have Cody take it off him for the first time. Just
Yeah.
I think there would have been a great story to be told there, and it's unfortunate that they won't be able to do it in that sense, and that those two guys won't be able to have a world title involved with it, but I think they're going to put on a hell of a match.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the work rate between the two of them alone is going to be astounding.
So,
And it's AEW's Vice President of Business Strategy that Harper is friends with. So a normal humanoid.
Okay. All right. I think that about does it for us for this week then. Anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. We're history.